Hello, everyone. Welcome to a podcast that I am deciding to make. This might go somewhere. This might not. But mostly it's just for myself. And if it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, it doesn't. This is the Mestizocast. And the purpose of this is just to share my thoughts and really a show meant for Hispanics living in the United States, whether you immigrated here or were born here, for pochos basically, who don't really know how to kind of deal with life and everything that's going on in the United States. People who may not feel totally welcome or may not really know their place within either the larger society or just how their views on their own race and culture should align with their lifestyle and how they should feel about different topics, things like that. And yeah, that's basically the premise of the Mestizocast and how it will move forward. The Mestizocast isn't it's not a name I'm totally set on yet, but it's 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 what we'll be using for right now until maybe a better name comes up. And yeah, this isn't gonna turn to like any sort of video series. Rather, it's just gonna be something that you can listen to while you drive or do your homework or just anything. If you ever need something to listen to, and if there's ever a topic that you may be confused on or need some guidance on, I can give my input for that if you are a Hispanic. And of course, because of the nature of this podcast, it's not really. Um, it's going to be mostly in English, almost entirely in English. I may decide to record something in Spanish at some point. However, uh, yeah, this whole project of mine is mainly for Hispanics who are kind of ingrained into I guess American or Yankee culture. Uh, Ones who may not really know how to speak English, or not how to speak English, but how to speak Spanish. And maybe this podcast can work as kind of a motivation for Hispanics living in the United States to learn more about their culture, learn more about their history, read books, listen to their own music, and just understand how their race and culture and how their roots tie into how they should view the world. Because it's certainly difficult, especially especially in like a society where that's increasingly polarized between the left and right, and how often Hispanics will use kind of their race not really. They'll talk about their race and they won't care about it. They will only ever use their race to advance the interest of the Yankee rather than the interests of themselves or their own race. For example, like a liberal or a progressive may use their Latinx identity or whatever to kind of further like a kind of narrative of oppression that doesn't really help themselves, but more so helps the interests of the U.S. Democratic Party. And same thing on the right with Hispanics who may use their race as a kind of look, the Republicans aren't racist because I'm a Republican, I'm Hispanic, or anything like that. And ultimately, what I want to get across is that we have to be proud of who we are as Hispanic Americans, not necessarily Americans in the United States sense or in the Yankee sense, but Hispano Americans as mestizos, whether ethnic or cultural, and how we need to go back to our roots and understand them, and ultimately better ourselves and our people, so that we aren't so heavily reliant on the United States. And that we aren't we basically have somewhat of not just a collective independence, but also an individual one, where we aren't just working in the interests of other powers who are not of our own, but just basically just that. And the thing that that I'm going to talk about today is it's I'm probably not going to talk about it for too long. I'm just going to kind of go on as I basically think about it. It's something that I've been thinking about lately, quite a lot actually, and it is concerning the recent protests in places like California and such. You've probably seen them of Hispanics or Mexicans or just any, but not just them. I mean, a lot of people, including white progressives, kind of marching in the streets, waving Mexican flags, basically protesting the whole Trump mass deportation thing. Now, I'm not going to go on a whole Trump derangement syndrome type rant, because I mean the issue. I mean, because I guess something that we should set clear is Trump is not someone who is in our best interest as collectively as a people. He may disputedly, or depending on who you ask, be in the best interest for the Yankee or for the gringo, but for us, no. And even though we shouldn't go full on angry or anything about really most things that he does, it doesn't mean that we should idolize him to a large pedestal. I mean, because usually with a lot of Hispanics, that I've realized, Trump is either a very like love or hate type figure. You'll either have Cubans or Venezuelans who adore Trump, who love Trump, and will basically they'll spread this narrative about how Trump is going to save Cuba and save Venezuela from communism, and and that we need the United States to intervene for us to get us out of the nightmarish situation that Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and other places kind of infected by the East have been going through, and you especially see this among immigrants, surprisingly enough, from those areas, especially in the Caribbean. But on the other hand, you also have many Hispanics, mostly I would say probably Mexicans or just Central Americans in general, Chicanos as well, who basically go on this whole kind of crusade on how Trump is a racist who is going to deport all the Hispanics, and yeah, neither of those mindsets are very healthy at all, not in the slightest, because ultimately, with one of them, even though you're not really like, let's say if you're on like the far Trump end, you're not at the very least you're not really falling for the whole progressive psyop that has increasingly been trying to be done to Hispanics. I mean, this has been this whole thing of the U.S. basically using progressive and LGBT values to basically get Hispanics on their side. It's something that essentially has been proven with the whole USAID scandal, or USAID, promoting and using spending a lot of money on trying to pay for basically transgender propaganda in places like Colombia and Honduras, I believe, as well as some other ones, if I'm not mistaken, Peru. And I mean, this should really open anyone's eyes that 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 progressive ideals are foreign to us as a people, are foreign to mestizos as a people. This is an idea that has ultimately grown out of the United States, out of the Yankee, either like from their own history, that doesn't apply to us, and it, in many ways, is very antithetical to a lot of our beliefs as mestizos and how we should view the world. And yeah, with concerning Trump, he is not he's not a hero. he I don't think Trump is a racist. However, he doesn't have to be a racist to be against the interests of our people, because ultimately he is the president of the United States, and the United States is an enemy of our people. And this is something that is kind of difficult for a lot of people to hear, because there has been kind of this whole psyop on that I've seen with a lot of Hispanics about how the United States is here to help us. They work in our best interests, and obviously you'll have these leftists too who go like, oh yeah, I hate the United States, Viva Cuba, or whatever. and and they'll kind of run over into the arms of Russia or China, and completely they'll completely abandon the idea of any type of Hispanic sovereignty. They Because that's ultimately not what they care about. I mean, many of them are also kind of those who basically fall for progressive ideas, and pretty much anyone who falls into like the false dichotomy of the American left and right is or even like what is considered the left and right in our own countries has basically been falling for what is essentially uh, a dichotomy that has existed ever since the Cold War. They haven't been able to get out of. For us, it's either China and Russia or the United States, and this is not a mentality that we should be very attached to or even accept at all, because we should think about it. We have almost the entirety of a continent, and the entirety of Central America. It is Hispanic. It's mestizo, and it shares. We share these roots and this shared heritage of being mixed between the Spaniard or the Portuguese and the indigenous, and in some places the African. We are a mestizo people who have this large spanning area, yet we have been nothing but a playground for larger foreign powers, whether that be the United States or what was previously the Soviet Union. We we as a people haven't really had a proper awakening that we should be independent, that we should have power over ourselves, and that we should also end a lot of the petty divides that go on between ourselves. Now, the good thing about the United States and Hispanics living here is that there is I've noticed, especially if you go to places like Miami, there is this kind of Hispanic solidarity, and that's an amazing thing, even if it has some negative foreign influence sprinkled in there. It's ultimately what we need. And going back to Trump and the whole protests that are going on, what should a Hispanic how should a Hispanic view the protest? How should a Hispanic view the mass deportations? Now, like in these protests, I noticed a sign. There are actually quite a few of these signs. It's something along the lines of man, what is it? It's something along the lines of no existen ilegales en tierra robada, or illegals don't exist in stolen land. And conservatives may go, even especially conservative Hispanics may go, oh well, something about how this land was conquered, settled, whatever, rightfully, because they want to view themselves as more American than Hispanic. And the reality is, first of all, that I mean, whether the land is stolen from us, it doesn't change that the Mexican government at the time was very, very it did not do a good job. It made a lot of horrible decisions, and it the Mexican government was so oblivious to the whole situation that it was kind of inevitable that this conflict with Texas and eventually the United States would happen. And because the truth is, I mean, this land is stolen, and in a way, it is ironic that that the United States currently is basically going on like this whole thing on illegal immigration in Texas, things like that. While the whole reason they own Texas and even the rest of the Mexican cession in the first place is that is because of illegal Yankee immigration into Texas, and of course there were many Texans or like Anglo Texans, if you want to put it like that, Germanic Texans, whatever, who did migrate to Texas legally because they promised to convert to Catholicism. And it's kind of a mix of all those people who migrated to Texas because Mexico wanted people to populate these vastly unpopulated areas, and that meant that the Yankee kind of immigrants would bring their slaves over, things like that. And that was the first big mistake of Mexico at the time. Mexico was naive enough to believe that that they could actually trust these Yankee migrants to actually adopt Catholicism, even even with their slaves, even though obviously slavery was still legal at that point, but there's the church already made many statements against slavery and against the institution of slavery. And it should have been obvious from the start that these people were not true converts. And not just that, but like that they wouldn't actually assimilate into Mexican culture. And I mean, this was obvious. I mean, they didn't even view mestizos as equal footing to them. They held a belief of like Anglo-Saxon supremacy, and I guess that is the thing that all Hispanics should recognize. That one, not Mexico, but Texas, New Mexico, California, Colorado. These are all. It's maybe it's not stolen land, but it is definitely conquered land, and it's not a good thing that the United States got it from us. And we collectively as people should have been smarter in how we actually defended the land. Mexico should have populated the areas with mestizos, with actual Catholics. And as people know about history of the Mexican-American War, the whole reason Texas seceded from Mexico in the first place was because of slavery being banned in Mexico. And the entirety of like this notion of like an independent Texan republic, it's entirely built off of the idea of slavery. It's not even really like it's not even a matter of, it's not even similar to Dixie, for example, in the American Civil War, because even though you can make an argument that that the government or the higher ups of the Confederacy were fighting to keep slavery as an institution, generally most people, most normal, average, everyday people in the Confederacy were not fighting for the institution of slavery. Most people didn't even own slaves. They were fighting for their culture, for kind of to keep their kind of semi aristocratic values. And there were even many Hispanics and Mexicans who fought for the Confederacy. And whether you believe that's right or wrong, it is totally clear that it is very different from Texan secession from Mexico. Because Texan independence, it's entirely built off of slavery. It's the only reason that it became independent. I mean, with the American Civil War and the Confederacy trying to secede, there were so many other background. Such a large background behind it, and so many reasons to why it happened. But with Texas, it can only really be put down to two things: slavery and immigration. And yeah, in that sense, I can sympathize with the liberals or the progressives who are holding up these signs, who are holding up these Mexico flags, protesting the deportations. And but on the other hand, too, one, you have to realize that it's kind of silly to wave these flags when, it's kind of silly to wave the Mexican flag around, protesting deportations, because you're kind of implying that that Mexico is not a worthy place to really stay in or go to, though meanwhile you're still waving their flags. And ultimately they miss a lot of the point when it comes to the whole stolen land argument, because this is an important thing that we should notice as Hispanics, that yes, our land was stolen from the United States, and we do have a right to take it back, but we don't take we don't take it back by siding with the Yankee institutions. I mean, because there are many reasons that that big business and just the general progressive institutions of this country love immigration, love illegal immigration, and want to stay, mainly for the purpose of exploitation. That's not how you're going to make the United States repay its debts, not by allowing, or not by, I guess, justifying the migration of Hispanics to the United States just so their kids in 2 or 3 generations can totally lose their culture, their language, etc. It's not really a good thing. And I think with the whole Trump deportations, I think for one, the best opinion to have is just be neutral on it, because ultimately there's going to be good things and bad things that arrive from it. Not good for, and when we talk about good, we shouldn't think good in the sense that it's good for the Yankee, but good for us, because the truth is we need people to stay in our countries. And I'm saying this as I was born in the United States. However, my parents are from Venezuela, and as a first generation or second generation, whatever generation I am, we should be cautious about the idea of all of all these Hispanics coming into the United States, even whether it's illegal or not, because the biggest thing that our countries need help. It is not good for us that we are leaving our nations or countries just so in a few generations we can just lose everything about us and we can just turn fully yankified. It's not a good thing at all, and if you want to do something about for Hispanics in this case, when you talk about the stolen land argument, there's a group of people, multiple groups of people that have been completely ignored for a very, very long time. And I'm sure that many of the progressives that are protesting the deportations, that are talking about stolen land, they likely don't even really care about these people, because ultimately, whether in Yankee politics, this is the way that it is. Hispanics will use their race to either advance the interests of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. Both are, just to put it short, liberal parties, which do not represent Hispanics in any way. And it's not like we should expect them to either. I mean, they're foreign to us. It's not something that we can like take over. It's not like we're gonna have a fully Hispanic America one day. Because ultimately, even if we like theoretically did become the majority, we would still be adopting we'd be adopting the entirety of the Yankee culture, the Yankee system. And at that point, we aren't even like really like mestizos anymore. Maybe we'd be mestizos ethnically, but like culturally and spiritually, we'd just be Yankees. And the real thing that we should be worried about and that we should take care of is the forgotten community of Neo-Mexicanos and Tejanos, people, Hispanics who have lived in the stolen or conquered areas, who have lived there for years, since before the Mexican-American War, and because their culture is dying, to put it lightly. They have a beautiful culture. They have a beautiful dialect of Spanish. Many of them are a beautiful mix between the Spanish and the Navajo people, among others. And it's a shame. It truly is a shame that we are ignoring these groups in favor of many people who frankly aren't supposed to be here, whether they have good intentions or not. And again, this isn't about the safety of the Yankee or the legality of the or the legitimacy of the Yankee legal system, but it's about us. We can't tackle all these things at once, and we shouldn't. And if immigration and the immigration issue is going to make Hispanics more progressive and less culturally and spiritually Hispanic or mestizo, Hispanic American to be clear, then this shouldn't even be an issue at all. We should be helping these communities, these new Mexican communities who are losing their culture, their Spanish among generations. This is a massive issue that I see almost nobody talk about. And it's bad, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing. And these people, are who we should be worried about, especially if you live in New Mexico, Arizona, Texas. Help these communities if you truly care about your Hispanic identity, your Mestizo identity. Then go out and help these people who have nothing going for them. They're sitting there just waiting, just like a corpse, or like a body that's barely breathing, that's dying a slow, painful death, that soon it's going to breathe its last. That's the people. Those are the people that we should be worried about. Maybe we can talk about we can argue about the whole immigration thing later, and like the mass deportation thing, at some other point. But this is the grand issue that people seem to not really care about, especially like yankified Hispanics who either lean very progressive, or have this kind of like Trump worship mentality and want to become Americans. You're not going to, because the truth is, we're not going to be accepted by the Yankee. Progressives only accept us if we basically just remove ourselves entirely from our culture, and remove ourselves entirely from our religion, our ethical and moral values. And conservatives expect us to kind of integrate into this foreign system, and it's ultimately the same thing, really. I mean, even if we keep conservative values, I mean, it's not like we're being any less yankified. And that's simply the way it is. And it's something that we should be afraid about. Not just because if you care about Hispanics Hispanic Americans as a collective group, like, not Hispanic Americans as in Yankee Hispanic or Pochos, but like Hispanic American in the wider sense of being the product of the intermixing of the Iberian Peninsula and the American continent, and the Native Americans, then these are people that we should desperately be trying to help if we have the chance. I mean, go to these communities and tell these like older people that we care about their plight, and volunteer, maybe, if you have the chance to. I live in Florida. I can't do much, but if you live in these areas, this is something that is worthwhile, that we should be preserving. And I mean, yeah, that is the way it is. So ultimately, what is, I guess, the what is the whole purpose of this, of what I'm saying? The whole purpose is to understand, one, progressives and conservatives are not going to help us in the long run, and we should not adopt these Yankee values if we truly care about our race and our people. And that we should care about our race and our people, that we should have a pride in who we are. It's really natural for us anyways. We shouldn't be trying to adopt what the Yankee is trying to impose on us. But also, that just don't fall for these political psyops. They are distracting us from these issues, and basically emotionally manipulating us into falling for the lies of the Yankee establishment, whether it be, progressive, like cultural, like progressivism, or some other thing. And I guess that's where we can end it off. Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Mestizocast, and I would greatly appreciate it if you shared this with any other Hispanic you know, or left a comment. Any comment, it does help with the algorithm. And if you'd want to see this channel grow, that would be great. I'm not sure if I'm going to record these on a very strict schedule. I might just record these whenever I feel like it or whenever I have something to say. But yeah, this was Alejandro speaking, and thank you very much for listening.